Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and it's that time of year. The Halloween Cup has made its annual return to Go Battle League. This is a 1500 combat power format where Poison, Bug, Ghost, Dark, and Fairy type Pokemon are allowed. And for my first video of this year's Halloween Cup, I'm going spicy, and I'm bringing the VGC GOAT Incineroar to the Halloween Cup. I think Incineroar has a kind of a cool niche, being able to completely destroy SCIZOR while also taking care of ghost types. This is not the strongest Pokemon in the meta, it's not a Pokemon that I recommend for climbing, but I was able to go even with it across the sets that I played. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches, and in game number 1, we actually have a mirror match, Incineroar versus Incineroar. This mirror can get a bit tricky with bait versus nuke, so I'm just going to opt out and get a catch onto Azumarill. This way it doesn't matter if they bait or nuke because everything is resisted. They go for the Blast Burn and now send out Amoonguss. Considering I have a Florges in the back, I'm very happy to bait this Pokemon out, as Florges would be completely walled. Amoonguss, Grass Knot does not take the knockout, and now I will get some very valuable damage with an Ice Beam. Ice Beam lands, Amoonguss is going to farm down, but what's an Amoonguss going to do to an Incineroar? In comes Incineroar, Fire Fangs adding up, Incineroar flexing, as this foul play does basically no damage. In the back, they have a Golurk, and this Incineroar energy is about to go off. I'm going to guarantee both shields from my opponent or just cleanly pick up the knockout, and then Florges should be able to sweep. Brutal Swing, picks up the one-shot. Oh my goodness, Incineroar. That damage is mental. They're going to bring back in their Incineroar, and I'm going to make what appears to be a bit of an odd play, but will make sense in time, by going for a Trailblaze. Now, Trailblazing a fire type, not typically what you should do, but I know that I'm walled by the Amoonguss, so if I can boost up my damage and help Chilling Water hit harder, then I'm going to be able to get a farm down afterwards, and then shortly thereafter, farm down the Incineroar to take the game 1 win. Hopping into game number 2, leading Incineroar into Zweilous. This is an absolutely terrible lead, but I have 2 nice responses to Zweilous in the back. In comes Florges, and out comes Shadow SCIZOR. This is a rare ABB line. Most of the time, I run ABC or XAB style lines, so this is a true ABB, where I need to bait out the SCIZOR if I want any chance of Azumarill to sweep this endgame. Night Slash will take the knockout, and I will fully wait down the switch timer, because the moment they bring back in this Zweilous, I'm going to need to pivot out and send in the Azumarill. In comes Incineroar, Fire Fangs are devastating, but SCIZOR leaves with a parting gift of a Night Slash. In comes Zweilous, answered with the Azumarill. In the back is another Golurk, and Azumarill is looking to sweep. Azumarill is going to be shielding up everything, as a Shadow Punch from Golurk would do a lot more damage than a Body Slam from a Zweilous. I do need to grab at least 1 shield, and then from here, just fully commit to the farm down. Throwing an Ice Beam would be a misplay, because every time my opponent throws, I get a sneak. And with that Bubble Sneak, they've been knocked out. This could get a little bit tricky though. Ice Beam is super effective, but it does not knock them out, so I'm going to go for the double Play Rough route to guarantee the knockout. Zweilous is going to fire off the Body Slam. They do have a decent amount of residual energy. This is going to be close. I get the Play Rough, but I lose Charge Attack priority. Oh no, and that's a problem as Azumarill gets KO'd. Back in comes Incineroar. Incineroar trying to race to the Blast Burn. Body Slam will not knock out, but it is going to be doing a sizable amount of damage to Incineroar. Incineroar gets to the Blast Burn. Come on, Incineroar. Blast Burn is resisted. Massive damage into the Zweilous. Incineroar farms down on 1 HP, and that is a good game. We get the Dream lead in the next match. Incineroar into Shadow SCIZOR. Opponent safe switches into Air/Mandibuzz, and I'm going to bank 8 Fire Fangs of energy and send out Azumarill. Mandibuzz farms up, and they realize they do not want to play anymore, as Azumarill would just be an absolute nightmare. Speaking of nightmares, that's what it feels like when you lead Incineroar into Shadow Golurk. I safe switch into Florges. That's going to be answered with, of all things, a Poison Jab Grimer. I did see Mud Slap Grimers, but a Poison Jab Grimer is a bit of a surprise. These Poison Jabs are doing a significant amount of damage. The good news for me is with Florges as a safe switch, even though this is a core breaker, it can hit the entire team for super effective, I'm able to apply multiple debuffs. And now, when they throw a Mud Bomb onto Incineroar, Incineroar should actually be able to tank it pretty well. Incineroar is going to look for the full Fire Fang farm down. Mud Bomb is going to connect, but Incineroar tanks that pretty well. The nice thing is I got 5 Fire Fangs, which means I can throw the Brutal Swing on good timing to force the shield, and then it's the Incineroar show. In comes Incineroar to the Golurk, going to be answered with the Shadow Amoonguss, but here's the thing about Amoonguss. It is not an answer to Incineroar if it's down a shield. Ice Beam lands devastating damage to the Amoonguss, and now my opponent is in trouble. I'm shielding everything on the Incineroar, they're gonna go for the Sludge Bomb, and things are now actually looking pretty good for me. I go for the Ice Beam. If they shield, they cannot win the game, so they have to let it go and try and sweep with Golurk. In comes the Golurk. I send in Incineroar, hoping for a catch. I don't get the catch, but what I did get was several Fire Fangs of damage. I'm not going to win this game with a charge move. I'm winning this game with bubbles. Golurk will go for the Shadow Punch. Golurk has a monster attack stat, but this is an XL Incineroar. We tank the Shadow Punch, get the farm down, and are now 4-0 in the set. And what a lead for game number 5, Incineroar into Shadow SCIZOR. My opponent safe switches into a Mud Slap Grimer, and I end up making a bit of a misplay. I think what I should have done was sent in the Azumarill, as Azumarill would have been able to handle this situation slightly better, but Grimer as a whole is a massive core breaker for this team. I'm able to get that Chilling Water debuff applied, my opponent will be firing off another Sludge, and I'm forced to double shield. Because I imagine Azumarill would be taking the Mud Slaps quite a bit better just because Azumarill is a lot bulkier. I go for the Trailblaze looking to ramp up my damage, and my opponent is going to look to double shield and make a play for switch. Considering that Grimer is a bit of an odd choice, I wouldn't be surprised if it was something like a Golurk or a Nidoqueen in the back. And if that's the case, then as long as I'm able to get Incineroar energy in the zeros, I will be able to take home this win. In comes SCIZOR. I settle for this Ice Beam just to get some damage before they knock me out with the Trailblaze. SCIZOR will get to massively overfarm. SCIZOR exits with the back-to-back Trailblazes here. Trailblaze will take the knockout. I'm going to send in the Florges just to force them to throw. They can't afford to overfarm in case I bring in the Incineroar. So they go for the Trailblaze. That lands, and it's all up to Incineroar. Come on, show me a Nidoqueen. It's not a Nidoqueen, it's an Azumarill, and we're fully walled. No 5-0 for Incineroar. And I will resign the match. Great lead in the next match, Incineroar into Shadow Amoonguss. Opponent safe switches into a Murkrow. I bank a ton of energy, and now out comes Florges. Florges will make it to the Chilling Water when they get their double up on Drill Peck, so the timing of my switch out there was very intentional. 5 Fire Fangs and a switch ensured that I would not get behind in this matchup and would still be able to maintain switch advantage. Back in comes Amoonguss. Amoonguss is going to get a 2 Astonish head start, but I'm bringing in Incineroar right away. Incineroar, these Fire Fangs add up. My opponent just going to throw a Foul Play to look to stall the switch timer. Foul Play is going to land. In the back is Galarian Moltres, and the double Dark Flyers have met their match, as unfortunately for my opponent, I just have them perfectly hard countered. I have the double Fairy for their double Dark Flyers. Ice Beam is going to get the shield, and as the Azumarill player, I never have to commit the shield on their first charge attack. They go for the hard-hitting Brave Bird. Now they will go for the Fly, and as long as I can force their final shield, I won't even need the Azumarill anymore, because I'll be able to clean up the game with Incineroar. They end up making a nice catch, catching the Ice Beam onto Amoonguss, but now I can snipe with the Incineroar. There's just no way for them to Sucker Punch me down, and they will resign the match. We see a terrible lead in the next match, Incineroar into Greninja. The safe switch to Florges, Greninja gonna farm up, bank energy, out comes Shadow SCIZOR, and man, double Fairy backline, it is a very, very risky choice because Shadow SCIZOR is incredibly powerful. SCIZOR will overfarm perfectly, playing to the CMP type, and Night Slash will deliver the knockout. Anytime I bait out the SCIZOR, you're always going to see this same weight because I'm just trying to burn my switch timer. So that way, when they end up bringing in the Greninja, I can send in Azumarill. Azumarill is going to get a catch. This does desync the switch timers as they did go for the Hydro Cannon. In the back is an Ice Fang Shadow Drapion, and there might actually be a chance. I'm expecting that they're going to shield here, so I will go for the Ice Beam. The Ice Beam gets no shielded, and I have made a misplay. Had I gone for the Play Rough, I could have bubbled down after, but my opponent calls the bait, and now suddenly puts me in a tough spot. Add to that the fact that they get the Crunch debuff, and things are suddenly not looking good. Ice Beam will take the knockout. I'm debuffed, so I'm forced to switch out into Incineroar, and this is going to be a really tough game to win. I just have no fast move pressure into this Greninja. Greninja puts up the shield. I do see a win con. Call a Night Slash bait. So I know shield. It's the Hydro Cannon, and unfortunately, that will lose me the game. Hindsight is obviously 2020. It's a miserable lead and swap, but Azumarill is pretty strong into their lead and closer. So if I had thrown the play rough and gotten that to land and bubble down, I think I may have had a chance to pull out the win. We get a much better lead in the next match, leading into Charge-a-Bug. My opponent is going to be save switching into Runerigus, and I bank a bunch of energy on the Incineroar and then send out Azumarill. Azumarill going to get debuffed with a Rock Tomb. I didn't want to stay in and go for the Brutal Swing because if my opponent ends up no shielding, then it really ends up desyncing the switch clocks. But so far they are ABA weak to the Incineroar, which does work out pretty nicely. Azumarill will go for the Ice Beam. It's super effective, but double debuffed, and that will allow Azumarill to get a bubble down. When the Charge-Bug comes back in, things are honestly quite tricky. I really hate throwing debuffed energy, so I want to get aggressive and pivot, but if they're ABA weak to the Incineroar, I'm expecting that they're going to have a Pokemon in the back that can deal with it. So I'm just going to be sending in the Incineroar. I'm expecting them to throw when they get the double up, so I just fire off the Brutal Swing to get a little bit of damage. This will be the back-to-back X Scissors. The plan is simple. No shield one, catch one onto the Florges. Because X Scissor is not going to do a lot of damage, but my opponent read the catch, they went for the discharge, and in the back is Galarian Moltres. Now Galarian Moltres, I should be able to take home this win by going straight Trailblaze. Because I'm going to have to shield everything they throw anyway, and I'm not ever really in danger of getting Sucker Punch down, so I may as well boost up my fast moves. Fairy Wind has never looked so deadly, as now I get to go for another Trailblaze. Moltres puts up the shield, but look at the Fairy Winds, my goodness. From here, it's the Incineroar show. I'm going to let Incineroar take home the win. In comes Incineroar. Incineroar going to farm down Moltres. All that's left in the back is the Charge-a-Bug, and we're able to take the win. Hopping to the next match, Incineroar once again greeted by Greninja, and this is part of why Incineroar is a pick for fun rather than a pick for climbing. Just because Incineroar, while it can do very interesting things and core break certain teams, it's a very polarizing Pokemon. If you lead it into a Greninja, odds are you're probably going to be in for a very tough game. Here, my opponent actually doesn't have an answer to the Florges save switch, which quite surprised me. Well, they send in a Sludge Bomb Dragalge, but Dragalge is not running Acid, it's running Dragon Tail. Dragon Tail will give it some pretty quick pacing, but does mean they have no fast move pressure. My opponent is going to pivot out in the back. They have a Alolan Marowak, and that is not a Pokemon I was expecting to see, but I'm happy to have Incineroar on it. Incineroar is going to be able to absorb a Bone Club, and now I get to go for the Brutal Swing. We know how hard Brutal Swing hits from this Pokemon. That's going to force a shield from my opponent, and I've decided, you know what? They led Greninja. I think that Incineroar has done its job, so I'm just going to let that go, and out comes Azumarill. The bubbles are slowly adding up onto this Alolan Marowak. Marowak is going to be firing off the Shadow Bone. Shadow Bone is going to land. They get the defense drop, and out comes Greninja. Greninja instantly met with the Play Rough. Play Rough is going to be shielded. Because my defense is lowered, Hydreigon is actually going to do a lot of damage. So Azumarill gets absolutely rocked. Quick switch to Florges. Florges cannot get there as Greninja will outpace. I do survive the Hydro though, so I know shield and Ignite Slash baited. Oh my goodness. The call that I wanted to make in the previous game that unfortunately I wasn't able to, I'm able to make in this game. And now back in comes the Marowak. Marowak just going to get knocked out by a boosted Chilling Water. Marowak has decent stats, but it's not going to make it. Back in comes Dragalge. Dragalge is going to fire off a last second charge attack. I had no shield. They reveal they had Aqua Tail as their second charge move. In comes Azumarill, and my opponent will resign the match. Incineroar into Florges in the next match. Now this is a matchup that Incineroar can win in the ones. It does need to bait to do so, but it is a matchup where Incineroar can generate some kind of advantage. And considering that I have Azumarill in the back, I am technically ABA weak to this Pokemon. So being able to have a shielding scenario that can play out and generate some kind of advantage is quite nice. So I'm able to get the shield on the debuffed Brutal Swing bait, which is nice. Chilling Water does big damage, but Incineroar hangs on very low HP. This was a matchup that I had researched prior to playing the team, and it pays off in a big way. But Shadow Nidoqueen hits the field, and this could be a problem, as Nidoqueen is so strong into this entire team. This is another reason why this is a team for fun rather than for climbing, because Nidoqueen, I do have super effective damage into it, from the Pokemon in the back. Obviously, Chilling Water from Florges and the Bubble and Ice Beam from Azumarill, but Nidoqueen is just so mercilessly oppressive. Nidoqueen is going to be able to grab the final shield with the Poison Fang. They should go for a catch out of this on the Ice Beam. They catch on a Fortress, and I can win this game. Bug Bite, not going to do a lot of damage, but a Volt Switch will. No, they're on Volt Switch Fortress, and that is going to seal my fate. I was still in a pretty okay spot if it was Bug Bite Fortress, because Bug Bite just doesn't do a lot of fast move damage to Florges, so I still think that I could have been okay, but unfortunately, it's Volt Switch, and I don't really see a way out. Unless somehow I'm able to bank a move and snipe them down with bubbles, then maybe there's a chance. So that's what I'm going to go for. I bank the move, switch into Azumarill. It's going to be close. Azumarill. No, they live on 1 HP. We almost pulled it off, even despite the Volt Switch Fortress, but the Fortress, too tanky, tanks the bubble, and takes home the win for my opponent. Hopping into the final match, and it's always a treat to cue into Z's Wireless. The Battle of the Spice. I get an incredibly favorable lead. I lead into Venomoth. He save switches into Shadow Sharpedo, and I respond with Azumarill. Shadow Sharpedo is a terrifying Pokemon. Poison Fang does huge damage, and look at my Azumarill's health bar. Azumarill is just getting absolutely deleted. Azumarill will fire off the Ice Beam as that's all that's needed to take the knockout, but Z's Wireless, he's looking to potentially force switch advantage. I'm going to shield, so at the very least, he's going to have to give up all shields if he wants switch advantage, because if I can get shields down, hopefully Incineroar can do well in the back. He's going to be giving up switch in exchange for a healthy farm on the Venomoth. Back in comes Incineroar. I've already taken big damage from those waterfalls. I had a very slow swap. I just wasn't sure what was on my screen. In the back is Guzzlord, and unfortunately, I actually feel quite bad about this game because normally I feel like Z's Wireless and I have very competitive, very exciting games. This game is just RPS on my side. I had 2 fairy types. He ended up having 2 dark types in the back, but I still wanted to include it because he is definitely a battler that I look up to. Like, his ability to run incredibly unique Pokemon is just so cool. There's the switch into the Venomoth, but I have 3 charge attacks loaded. The back-to-back Chilling Waters, and I have the Brutal Swing that I saved on the Incineroar when the Guzzlord switched in. So, after 1 Chilling Water lands, a second Chilling Water takes the shield. The Brutal Swing will be able to take home the win. All in all, despite that terrible alignment, it's a testament to how good of a battler Z's Wireless is that he made that game as close as it was. All in all, I did end up having a ton of fun with Incineroar. I'll be honest, after starting my first set 1-4 and throwing a couple games, I was about ready to give up on it, but I ended up having a 4-1 set after, and I believe I ended the day, or at least the day of battling with Incineroar, at 8 wins and 8 losses, so perfectly even across 3 sets and 1 additional game. Now, as I mentioned at the start, Incineroar is not a Pokemon that I would recommend for climbing. I do plan on posting a Halloween Cup climbing team tomorrow, as I do want to figure out the meta just a little bit more before I put out a team that I say I'm confident can get wins in this meta. But hey, for day 1 and having fun, I feel like that was mission accomplished. I really enjoyed leading into those SCIZORs with Incineroar, although my favorite game by far absolutely had to be the Blast Burn into this Wireless and Fire Fanging down. There was probably like 4 points in that game where I thought I was cooked. There was no way that game was even remotely winnable, so to fight back and still get the win, shout out to Incineroar. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoy watching content like this, please do consider leaving a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And an extra special thank you to our channel members here on YouTube. The support you guys provide is sincerely appreciated. So thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.